Hello guys and welcome. I'm TC Lee and I'm here today to talk about the set Galenwe. So Galenwe is a heavy armor set that can be found in the Cloud Rest trial in Somerset, and the set has both a regular and a perfected version. The regular set comes on normal Cloud Rest, and the perfected version you can get in the veteran Cloud Rest trial. So Galenwe is typically a tank set and it has some good tank related bonuses. So we've got, for 2 pieces we get maximum health, for 3 pieces we get minor Aegis, which reduces our incoming damage from dungeon trial and arena monsters by 5%. 4 pieces we've got 4% healing taken, and if you've got the perfected version we've got the 5-piece bonus of extra max health. If it's the non-perfected version you don't get that max health bonus. And the main 5-piece bonus is, after successfully blocking, you grant Empower to 11 allies within 15 meters for 3 seconds, increasing the damage of their light and heavy attacks by 40%. This can occur once every 2 seconds. This Empower is quite important, especially currently. Now I am talking in the update 28, and with this update we had an improvement to Empower. So Empower got changed slightly and is now considered quite a strong DPS increase. So for the numbers, to kind of explain how things work, these have been tested in raid with various different groups, normal kind of groups that are doing standard kind of DPS, not super high performing top level DDs. So this is your average kind of progression level group. We had a DD that was hitting around 70k DPS with Galenwe. Without Galenwe, this worked out about 4k lower, and this is because the light attack average DPS worked out at about 11k. The light attack average DPS with Galenwe worked out around 15k. So we got that 4k difference in DPS. So the DPS was hitting 70k with Galenwe. So the difference between the 66k DPS up to the 70k DPS, obviously that's 4k DPS, that's around 5.88% DPS increase from Galenwe, or more from Empower. So the strengths of Galenwe. So Galenwe is extremely easy to maintain as a buff. All you have to do is block. You don't have to do anything else. You stand there, you block, and you give the Empower buff to your group. For newer tanks, you should get a really good uptime, as newer tanks tend to block much for longer periods of time than more experienced tanks. It's a very reliable proc, so it procs on everybody in your group within 15 meters. It's a free and automatic buff, so it costs no resources other than your block cost to activate it, and it happens without you doing anything. You stand there, you block the attacks from the boss, you proc Empower, you proc your Galenwe set, you give your group that damage buff. The uptime potential for this set is extremely high. In some trials from testing it already, I've got 85% uptime on the Galenwe procs on people. So an 85% uptime is incredibly high. That's why we're able to increase the DPS by such a high percentage. When you compare the DPS increase from Galenwe, let's say 5.88%, you compare that with Yolnahkrin. Yolnahkrin was improving DPS by about 2%. So Galenwe effectively, when used, can potentially be a stronger set than pretty much any other set that provides a damage buff out there. When you combine Galenwe with another set such as Yolnahkrin, it makes you extremely tanky. So you have about 45 to 50k max health when fully buffed up, while wearing those 2 sets with all the health bonuses and everything put in. We've got an increase in damage, so max health is going to be quite important. It's going to be helpful, so this is a good way to kind of build up your tankiness while also still providing your group with more DPS. You provide a group damage buff, and it can vary from anywhere from around 4% up to 8%, and maybe even higher, but it is very group dependent because your group does need to do light attacks. Your group does need to be utilising the Empower buff. If you go even lower tier to absolute beginner level, obviously this is easy to use because you stand and block, you give a buff, but if your DDs aren't actually doing light attacks, then it's not doing anything. So you do need some level of knowledge within the game to make this work. You do need people to be using light attacks to make use of the buff. It's extremely good on close combat fights where you are hit quickly by the bosses. So things like Kain's Aegis on the last boss. The boss has no cleave, so you can stack on top of the damage dealers, and you get hit by the boss about every 2 seconds. So your Galenwe is going to be proccing non-stop It's going to be proccing endlessly. You're going to get that onto your allies very, very easily. So there are a few weaknesses, obviously, to Galenwe. So this set can be replaced by a Necromancer off-tank using Empowered Grasp. So you've got a 5-piece set, and it can be replaced by one skill used by a Necromancer off-tank. It won't activate on people in fights where the DDs are spread out and too far away from the tank. So it's got a 15 meter range, and 15 meters is quite a good range. However, if you're in a fight where you are spread out, this isn't going to be too useful because people are going to be too far away to get the benefit from the set. So in fights where you're really spread out or really far away from the tank, this wouldn't be a very good set to use. But it really depends if you've got other sets that are better to use. And if not, this will still probably get onto some of your DDs, maybe in phases where they can get a bit closer, they can get the buff, but it's just not going to have as high of an uptime as fights where your group is close to the main tank. It won't be useful on fights with slow hitting bosses. So Asylum Sanctorium, you get hit once every 5 seconds by the boss, and then sometimes you don't take any damage for 10 to 15 seconds when you get back-to-back mechanics of like Heaven's Breath and Spit. In that sort of situation, it's definitely not worth it. So your group's already kind of too far away. But even if they do stack close, if you're in a phase where the boss is doing back-to-back mechanics, where it's not doing the swipe attacks, you're not actually going to be proccing Galenwe for potentially 15 seconds. So in that situation, it's definitely not worth using the set, and you're better off using something that's going to benefit your group much more consistently. The third piece bonus is Minor Aegis, which could be completely useless if you're pairing it with other sets like Yolnahkrin. So Yolnahkrin also has Minor Aegis. So if you are using this set alongside another set with Minor Aegis, then your 3 items bonus is going to be completely negligible. It's going to do nothing. So it is kind of a little bit of a waste having overlapping bonuses. It's not the end of the world, though. It is fine to kind of mix those 2 sets. It just means that you're having 1 bonus less than you might get by using a different set. So Galenwe versus Empowering Grasp. Which one is better? It's really going to be up to your group and how good your Necro off tank is, and also how much you do physically block as a main tank. So Galenwe has got a very high uptime potential on your entire group just from blocking and being in range. This is much more reliable than Grasp, as you need to physically target and cast Grasp on a stacked group to get them to have the Empower buff. If you're in a trial where your group isn't stacked, it'd be impossible to hit everyone. So let's say there's a mechanic where you have to spread, you'd have to keep directing your Grasp into various different directions, and it's going to be pretty difficult to be able to maintain and sustain that, and it just would not be a realistic kind of option. Galenwe can trigger on all 11 allies in your group, whereas Grasp can only activate on 6 people per AoE. So you have to cast Grasp at least twice on a stacked group to get everybody to have the buff, which means you are going to have to double cast Grasp every 4 seconds to have a good uptime, whereas you can proc it on 11 people constantly every 2 seconds just by blocking in Galenwe. Grasp is 2 seconds longer than Galenwe, so it's 5 seconds. So when you apply Empower via Empowered Grasp, that lasts 5 seconds. Galenwe only lasts 3 seconds. You do have a longer duration on Empowered Grasp, so potentially things aren't as bad because you can put the buff on people. It lasts a little bit longer, so you've got more time to manage getting it back on them again and refreshing it on your DDs. Galenwe costs nothing other than your block cost, which you are likely to be doing anyway. Grasp would cost Magicka at least twice every 4 seconds to get it onto your group. Galenwe kind of wins in that situation where you don't have to spend any resources and you get it on everybody. So it's much more consistent. Galenwe is a 5-piece set, however, so you're having to wear a 5-piece set to give 1 group buff that Necro can do with 1 skill. So you've really got to weigh up those options as well. And Grasp requires high activity. Lots of casting, lots of moving around, depending on your situation, whereas Galenwe is just free and automatic. So it's really up to you to decide which way you're going to play it. If you've got a really, really good Necromancer off tank, that might be the better option. If you've got someone who's very inexperienced and not able to maintain the buff, then obviously Galenwe is going to be far superior. And in beginner level groups or progression groups, Galenwe will probably perform a lot better and you'll get a much higher uptime. So when do you use Galenwe? Galenwe will be used in place of Alkosh. This is in the situation where you're in a Magicka group, your damage dealers are majority Necromancers and Nightblades, so you don't need Alkosh unless you are in Sunspire, where it's not possible to flank the bosses. If you've got a lot of people in your group who are Sorcerers, Wardens, Dragon Knights, then you are going to need to probably use Alkosh still. If the majority of your group are Nightblades and Necros, you won't need Alkosh because you can use very few CP or none at all into Spell Erosion to get max pen. So Alkosh is a complete and utter waste to use in a group where almost everybody is a Necro or a Nightblade, unless you're in Sunspire, because the Nightblade passive only works when you're flanking the enemy. So when you're at the side or behind, you can't do that in Sunspire, so you still need Alkosh. Alkosh should be replaced in both beginner and progression groups where the tank is inexperienced in performing a low uptime of Alkosh, sort of under 80%, I would say, is a benchmark number to hit for Alkosh before it becomes not as good, and it's not really worth running at that point. You'd be better off getting the consistency from champion points. Also, where your group doesn't provide enough synergies to maintain Alkosh. So that would be where I would drop Alkosh and potentially bring in Galenwe into the mix as a usable set. You can use Galenwe in any group where you don't have a Necro off tank applying Grasp, or where you have a Necro off tank who isn't very good at keeping the uptime or not very experienced. You can also use Galenwe in any situation really where your group is in close combat. So Galenwe has a 15 meter range. That's slightly shorter than the full range of an Elemental Blockade. It's slightly larger than the size of the Templar's Extended Ritual. So use Galenwe in fights where the DDs are around the same 360-degree distance from the Galenwe tank within those distance parameters that we just said. So within those ranges, so within a kind of Extended Ritual range, slightly larger range than that in a 360-degree radius. So that is my review of the Galenwe set. I personally think it's a very good set to wear. I do think in much higher passing groups, you could end up getting up to an 8% benefit from using it, if not more. At the minute, as I'm making this video right now, light attacks are not working properly. Light attack weaving isn't working properly. And these tests got a result of around almost 6% more DPS from using Galenwe. So once these are fixed, once things are working properly, once we've got groups hitting higher DPS, we might also see the fact that Galenwe is going to perform even better, or should I say, Empower is going to be more valuable because it is adding a considerable amount of DPS in the current patch, the Markarth DLC. The fact is, with the change to Empower, so now it doesn't get consumed anymore. So for the whole duration of Empower, you are getting the buff, you are getting the increased 40% light attack damage. So you are able to keep a really high uptime, especially with Galenwe, which means you're increasing most of your group's light attacks, which means you're increasing their DPS by quite a considerable amount. And it's definitely should be considered as an option in pretty much any group where it's Nightblades and Necros, or this is going to be very good in progression groups, like I say, where Alkosh isn't a predominant factor because of the low uptime, and you're better off getting the consistency from CP and the consistency from Galenwe. When you partner Galenwe with Yolnahkrin, you've got two sets, one that procs off taunting that you've got to do, one that procs off blocking that you've got to do. So two very good damage buffing sets that are proccing off doing tank things. Thank you all for watching this video. Please make sure you check out thetankclub.com for more information, and also if you'd like to chat about this particular topic or any tank related topics, or you've got any tank questions, make sure you check out our Discord. That's at discord.gg/thetankclub. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye for now.